of Social Science, and his friends Akshay and who? Pavan?
Akshay, Roshan, and Swapnil.
All students from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Pavan, you may start now.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Jai Bhim, everyone. Good evening and very warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. I am more than grateful to be here and welcome you all to these wonderful and insightful sessions organized by Association for Social and Economic Equality. Today, I, Pavan Khadse, a MSW student of Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, shall
Pavan,
be...
please wait. Dr. Shashikant sir and Dr. Krishnaraj sir, please on your video. Professor Krishnaraj sir. Thank you. Yes, Pavan, we continue.
Thank you, sir. So, I, Pavan Khadse, a MSW student of Tata Institute of Social Science, Mumbai, shall be walking you through the seminar. Before that, firstly, I would like to welcome to our honorable chairperson of this webinar, Padamshree, Professor Sukhadeo Thorat sir, former chairperson of UGC and ICSSR New Delhi, and the president of ASEE, Association for Social and Economic Equality. Welcome, sir. With your continuous.
Okay. Good evening to all, including the two distinguished speakers, Krishnaraj and Shashikant Pattan. Well, all of you know that for last couple of weeks we have been organizing lecture on the anti-caste movement in various states in India. And we have covered Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Rajasthan and other states. Fortunately, we have two speakers who will speak about the anti-caste movement and the role of two distinguished people. One, the Krishnaraja Vadiyya, the king of Mysore, and of course, everybody knows the Basaveshwara's role. After this lecture, we will have two more lectures on the anti-caste movement in West Bengal and Kerala. But we have very interesting session today. People know very less about the theme that these two speakers will cover. Shashikant Pattan will share his view on Basavanna and advocate for true democracy and human rights. I think Basavanna's role in anti-caste movement is very outstanding. And his role is outstanding because he not only preaches equality, but also practice it. And for practicing, he paid the price. We will get to know the detailed account of his thoughts as well as his activities from the speaker. When I discussed with Krishnaraj about the speaker and the theme, Krishnaraj also said that the princely king Krishnaraja Vadiyya, the fourth of Mysore, the priestly state, has also played a very significant role in developing social and economic policies for the depressed classes. Well, I will share with Krishnaraj and other also. We had also a lecture on Gujarat and the role of Sahajirao Gaikwad, the king of Gujarat. Now, you will find that some of these kings who come from the other backward caste, Shahu Maharaj, Sahajirao Gaikwad, and others, have played an important role in life of Dr. Ambedkar, but as well as in the anti-caste movement. I had only thin idea about the role of Krishnaraja Wadia, but I think we will get an opportunity today to listen from Krishnaraj about his role. I at least know that the king of Kolhapur, Shahu Maharaj, and Krishnaraja Vadaiya, they had a relation. In fact, most of these OBC king intermarry within themselves. The king of Sayajirao Gaikwad's relatives got married to the king, OBC king of Tavanjur. So they had a relation, and also some of the king north, Gwalior and other. Through my contact, I also know that the king gave about 8 acres of land to Dr. Ambedkar to construct the Buddha Vihara in Bangalore. And we have that Buddha Vihara today in a high school under the overall supervision of People Education Society set up by Dr. Ambedkar. So friends, in this series of the anti-caste movement in various provinces and states, we have a very interesting lectures today by Krishnaraj and by Pattan. And we look forward to listen to him. With this preliminary remark, I pass it on to the organizer, this young student from TIS, who are taking interest in this lecture series. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. I also welcome our guest speakers. On behalf of the association, I welcome today's guest speaker, Honorable Dr. Shashikant Rudrappa Pattan, sir. He is president of Basava Understanding Research Center, Pune. He will enlighten us with his talk on the topic, Basavanna, an advocate for true democracy and human rights. Welcome, sir. I also welcome to our guest speaker of the webinar, Professor Dr. Krishnaraj, Center for Economic Study and Policy, CESP, Institute for Social and Economic Change, Bangalore. He will enlighten us on the topic Krishnaraja Vadiyar IV of Mysore, princely states, an architect of social and economic development of downtrodden. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
I also welcome our participants who have joined us in this wonderful webinar. Welcome and enjoy the session. Before the beginning of the session, I would like to invite Akshay to please give a brief introduction of our today's guest speaker, Dr. Shashikant Rudrappa Pattan, sir. Akshay.
Thank you, Pawan, and good evening all. Myself, Akshay from TISS. So I'm introducing Dr. Shashikant Rudrappa Pattan. Dr. Shashikant Rudrappa Pattan was born on 5th September 1996 in the Freedoms family of Ramdurga of Belgaum district. He completed his B.Pharm and M.Pharm with the first class at KLS College of Pharmacy, Belgaum, and did his PhD from Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore. And he has a long experience of teaching for 33 years. He has a keen interest in the Kannada literature and wrote 25 books on Basavanna and other poetry collections. He gave several talks on a TV and radio. Currently, he is working as a president of a Basava Understanding Research Center, Pune. He has given several talks at Karnataka University and University of Mysore. He has published more than 300 research articles and have 4 patents in pharmaceuticals science. I warm welcome today's guest speaker, and I'll over to Pattanam, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay. So I would like to invite Dr. Shashikant Rudrappa Pattan, sir, to please address our audience with your enlightened words, sir. Please, sir. Dr.
Sure.
Shashikant.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Bowing before the spiritual soul of Buddha, Basaveshwara, Bapu, and Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, I sincerely express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Sukhadeo Thorat, sir, an international scholar and academician, or the former UGC chairman, now presently working as the president of Association for Social and Economical equality. I take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all my youngsters who have arranged this sort of webinar, which will be useful for the annihilation of caste system and eradication of caste system. I would like to talk on today, Basavanna, an advocate for true democracy and human rights. Well, the scenario of 12th century in India was the worst because of the exploitation. There are no religious rights, no literacy, no opportunities for the downtrodden people. The opportunities were only reserved for the upper Brahminical society. The worst practice of Varnashrama rituals like Homa, Yajna, animal sacrifice, man sacrifice were also practiced during 12th century. Coming to Basavarna's brief introduction, I just want to tell a brief introduction about Basavarna. Basavarna was born in Orthodox Shaiva Brahmin family in 12th century in 1131, as per the historian Dr. P.B. Desai, who said his father was a knight of a Chalukya king of Kalyana named as Madharasa, and mother was Madalambike. He had an elder sister as Akkanagamma and an elder brother named as Devaraja. The turning point in the life of Basavarna was the holy thread wearing ceremony, which we call as a Upanayana. The Brahminical society has two stages of life, which they call as a Dvija. Up to 8 years, they are not given any rituals of religious rites. At the age of 8, he will be called in front of the priest class people with the power of priesthood and all the scholars of Vedic Sanatana. They would like to put the thread, holy thread, in the neck of the boy, Basavarna. Basavarna questioned this to his parents, asking why this religious right is not given to his elder sister. And he had no answer. The priest class people said that Na Sri Swatantra Aram, there is no right for womanhood. We cannot give the holy thread to the woman. Later, Basavarna asked, if not, why not we give this to the downtrodden? The people in the society, they said, no, they are Panchama, they cannot be given the holy thread. Then he said, what is this religion? If this religion is discriminating amongst the woman and the downtrodden, I don't want such religion to be practiced. He thrown away the thread. I think this is the first time in the history of an Indian culture saying that a Brahmin boy throwing out his thread and going to Kudala Sangama, boycotting his parents and telling that I don't want to be under the Vedic culture. He says, what sort of Vedic culture do these people practice? They got practice for their Vipraru. This Brahminical society culture is a convenient, they're hypocrites. They're making the convenient opportunities for themselves and for others, they make the different roles. So Upanayana was rejected by Basavarna. It is the beginning of the eradication of caste system. It is the beginning of Basavarna's fight for the human rights. It is the beginning of the advocacy for the genuine democracy. Then Basavarna studies 12 years in Kudala Sangama, which was also a Shaiva study circle. He studies all the Veda, Agama, Shastra, Upanishads. He finds nothing in that. One day, his maternal uncle, Baladeva, comes to Kudala Sangama to offer his prayings to Lord Sangameshwara, Kudala Sangameshwara, along with his daughter. He was very much impressed by the Basavarna. But he was very much impressed by Basavarna's talents and culture studies. And he says, why don't you join as a junior clerk as a treasury of Mangalaveda, now at Solapur district. Now it is in Solapur district. It was under the province of Chalukya and Kalachurya. He agrees and goes with his elder sister Akkanagamma and Channa Basavarna, the son of Akkanagamma, the nephew of Basavarna. what Basavarna's significant contribution for the anti-caste system is he uprooted the power of priest class. He questioned the superstitions. He opposed the blind beliefs. He questioned all the orthodox practices, rituals in the societies. And he thought he should commit himself for the uphold of the downtrodden people. It was an anti-Vedic movement which he started in 12th century. He gathered so many people. The people of him were not surrounded by the priest or class or the Brahminical society. They were surrounded by potter, cobbler, weaver, blacksmith, all downtrodden people. The people who had no voice from 1,000 years. I can tell after the spark began after the 1,700 years of Buddha. Buddha was the first person on the earth who questioned this Hippocratic system and Hippocratic society. Basavanna opposed all the rituals and encouraged and enriched all the untouchables. He said not to go. The body itself is a temple. My legs are the pillars. The head is a shrine. The God dwells in the holy conduct of an individual. He opposed the feudal, the temple craft system, culture. He said not to go to the temple, not to give offering for yajna. Don't give bribe to the priest class or Brahminical society. So this was a very unique of Basavanna during that time. The powers of priesthood was questioned. The hypocrisy was totally condemned and criticized. He opposed dogmatism and meaningless rituals. He opposed the idol worship. The exploitation in the name of God and religion were totally eradicated from the society. Basavanna started the new way of life or the movement, which was called as the Lingayat or the Sharana Movement, which is non-Vedic and non-Hindu or a parallel to the Indian culture. Basavanna was later, after Mangalabeda, when Bijjala became the king of Kalyana, Basava Kalyana, later it was called as a Basava Kalyana, he was offered a finance minister in the court of Bijjala. And Baladeva, who was the prime minister of Bijjala and a close friend of Bijjala's father, Peramadi, they were friends, and he gave his daughter Gangambika to Basavarna. This is about what the brief history of Basavarna. I'd like to tell what all Basavarna's advocacy for the human rights, what all his steps for struggle to eradicate the caste system, the annihilation of caste system. Basavarna advocated for the human rights. Here I would like to quote the quotation of sayings of John Burko, who was a parliament speaker. He says, "It is amazing and extraordinary that Basaveshwara professed, espoused, campaigned and advocated for genuine democracy, human rights, gender equality way back in the 12th century, even before anyone in the United Kingdom had ever thought about it." This is the sayings of the Honorable Speaker of Parliament of British Parliament. Basavarna called for the total revolution. He gave a call for whom? For all the downtrodden, for all suppressed class people, the women, workers, farmers, potters, cobblers, blacksmiths, weavers, and other all professionalists who were treated as untouchables. They were kept away from the society. They were kept away from the places. Regarding the religion right must not be negotiated or begged to Brahminical or priest class. He avoided the temple craft culture and asked the man to divine by himself, performing the honest labor. Kayakve Kailasa, he says, labor is the heaven. Don't think of the heaven and hell are the different things. It is the good conduct is the heaven and the bad conduct is the hell. Ishtalinga was given as a symbol of consciousness. It is a symbol of universe. Ishtalinga was not an idol. It is not to be worshipped, but it is it should not be taken as a ritual. It was the symbol of the whole universe, which Basavanna gave to everyone, so that it was a fundamental right for the people who were not given an opportunity to have a religious rights. They got a freedom from Lord Basavarna. Basavanna demolished all the barriers of the caste system. He removed all the barriers of the class, creed, color. Perhaps Karnataka is the only place under the leadership of Basavarna who uprooted power of priesthood. He fought against the caste privilege reservations. This is very important. Today what these people shouts that the reservation should go. But who started the reservations? The caste privilege reservations was started by the same Brahminical society, Varnashrama, Manusmriti, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and Panchama. The downtrodden people were not given any opportunity. They were treated like animals. Till today, many of the villages in India, the downtrodden, untouchable peoples are not allowed to go to the temple. They're not allowed to take the water from the well. Many incidents there is harassment, torture on Dalits till today in the 21st century. So Basavanna called all the people for the total revolution. He said, you have every right. You have fundamental right. You have to make your life. He says, if the king of Bijala, he did not make his relations with though he was a relative of Bijala later. Bijala gave his sister to Basavarna for his second wife, Nilambika. Basavarna's main aim and object was to establish the classless society, which must be based on the spiritual and practical values, to emphasize the humanitarian values, to spread the religion that was democratic spirit and practice, to establish a society on equalitarian values, including the gender equality, to uplift the downtrodden. It is multi-faced social, religious movement in Karnataka and during 12th century. Basavanna gave a confidence to the downtrodden people, the suppressed class people, saying that Kaya is a body or a Sharira. So if it is wrong if I don't mention Professor M.N. Roy. M.N. Roy says, Karl Marx has taught the dignity of labor, whereas Basavanna taught both the dignity and divinity of labor. The working class was given the priority, and there is no right for anyone to eat his bread without the labor. But everyone has to do Kayaka was a mandatory. Labor was a mandatory. Without working, no one has right to take his food. So this was a principle which Basavanna emphasized to the society. And he fought against the discrimination. There should not be any discrimination amongst the even works also. Cobbler should not be treated as a low. Brahman should not be. He says, Brahmana, who is the Brahmana? The one who chants the mantra is the Brahmana. The one who stitches is the weaver. The one who makes the chappals are the cobbler. To that extent, he says, if he dies, if Basavarna, one of his vachana, he says, if I die, don't make a idol of me and worship me. Peel out all the skin and make the chappals, the footwears to the people who cannot wear, who cannot afford to wear. This is what Basavanna is. And then he says, Kayaka was such a significant, then all over the country, from Afghanistan, Kashmir, Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Tanjavur, all people, they came to Karnataka. Amongst them was one Madhuvarsa of Mahadeva Bhupala of Kashmir, Mandavapura. He came along with his wife, who was very much attracted for the annihilation of caste system or eradication of caste system of Lord Basavarna. He came along with his wife, his sister Bonta Devi, wife Mahadevi, and he didn't do any other job other than being he was an administrative head. Then there was a mandatory, labor was a mandatory. Then he had to cut the woods and sell it give it to the people, Sharana people. It was his job. So there was no discrimination amongst the work. He said, Kaya Kabe Kailasa. The one who does the labor with the honesty itself is a Kailasa. You cannot find any Kailasa. Kailasa cannot be purchased on the daily wages. Coming to the Dasoha, if the Kayaka is the collection of a wealth, Dasoha is certainly distribution of wealth. Reservation, deposition, and accounting, keeping the wealth to one's own account is an offense. He says you cannot, I cannot have a grain amongst the food. But if I cannot have a thread of a cloth, I don't want. Let me share it to the society. This was the Dasoha, was the distribution of wealth. And Dasoha became uniform. Dasoha became mandatory. So the collection was also good economically, and it was distributed. The socio-economical equality, what we talk today, it was practiced much before, 900 years before, during Basavarna. So storage and deposition of a wealth in his and her account is certainly an offense as per Basavarna and Basava philosophy. I would like to give the illustrations of Aidakki Lakkama. Aya is a coolie, the one who does the coolie. Both husband and wife were performing a coolie in the Anubhava Mandapa and Mahamane of Basavarna. And there was a barter system. For the labor, they used to give some paddy. One day, Maraya, the husband of Aidakki Lakkama, did more work. He had more paddy bags that day. He used to lift all the bags and kept it. And Basavarna gave the extra wages as per his work. When Maraya comes to the home, she objects, why you have brought the excess paddy? You have no right. She refuses to accept the extra wages given to at the cost of his effort by Basavarna. He says, no, go and return it and come. Let Basavarna use this for the common people whom he defined as a Jangama. It is not for us. We need only whatever grains we require, that is enough for us. Excess, wealth, property, anything, either kind or cash, go and return. So this is an example how they were practicing what they understood. Coming to the literacy movement and the literary growth. Illiteracy was a common factor during 12th century. Madara Chennaya was a cobbler. Dohara Kakkaya was a tanning of the skin. They didn't have any literacy. Basavanna started a movement for these people. He says, Appanu Namma Madara Chennaya, my father is a cobbler. My grandfather is a shoemaker. He did not bridge his relations with the Brahminical society, though he came from the Brahminical society. This is very significant, which I want to tell. He had equated his relations. He could equate his relations, his efforts of bringing these people, downtrodden people, to the mainstream. Many of the vachanas are like dohas or abhangs in Marathi, dohas in Hindi. Vachanas are wordy expressions of a most divine and mystic experience. What they practiced in their life, they used to cut. This is called as the freedom of speech, freedom of press. He says, Nimage Kedilavagi Anu Validanta, whatever I mentioned today, my opinion should be approved by everybody. Though it is my individual opinion, it requires the public approval. This is how Lord Basavarna started as a result of literary movement, a literacy movement. There are 256 poets from all around, more than 200 people from downtrodden, people who are not having any literacy. They wrote such a beautiful vachanas, which we cannot say. He says, once even if the God comes to their house, he or she says that God has to work in their house to get his food. The God, if they come to the house of Bhakta, of Kalyana, Basava Kalyana, God has no right to have his food without working. So this much of consciousness was developed, and there was a greatest revolutionary part of it. Revolutionary, I can tell, because it is a Vidrohi Sahitya, revolutionary. And people had outspoken. They fought against the classless and casteless society without any fear. They had a fear of a Brahminical society. They had a fear of a king. They had a fear of a kingdom, ministers. But Basavarna says, don't have any fear. You should not have any fear. Be honest. Don't steal not, kill not, lie not, don't boast yourself. There are 7 principles, amendments, which he says, Sapta Shilagalu, he says. Today in the UNO, they're mentioning the high principles of Lord Basavarna. And the revolutionary Sharana movement, under the inspiring, charismatic, dynamic leadership of Basavarna, he propagated a new religion, which is named as Lingayat, which is a non-Vedic and a parallel to the Hindu religion. But very unfortunately, it has not got the fight, or the movement is still continue, that it is non-Vedic and non-Hindu religion, still it has not got the constitutional recognition. Coming to the most important is annihilation of caste system. whenever we come across annihilation of caste system, we refer only Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, the greatest man on the earth. I can say it's the pride of having such a great son, noble son of India. Basavarna says, castes are decided by the professions and not by the birth. Kashi Kamar, another, the blacksmith, he working in the along with the fire, and Dobi, washerman, potter. How do you decide the caste? Castes are decided by the profession and not merely by the birth. And he says, my father is the cobbler, my great grandfather is the washerman, my brother is a potter, Kinnari Brahmaya, the magician, is my uncle. He never said, Anu Haravanandar, if I say I'm a Brahmin, God will kill me. He will not forgive me. He says he's not a Brahmin. Though he is born as a Brahmin, he says the Brahminical culture, the exploitation, the sutras, the principles of exploitation, the hypocrisy of Brahminical culture was strongly condemned, criticized by Basavarna. There was another most remarkable development during the 12th century. As you all know, Manusmriti, the Brahmana boy can marry the downtrodden girl. Anuloma is called as Manu Maharshi. As per Manu Maharshi, Brahman can have an intersex even with the lower caste of the girl, lower caste girl. But lower caste boy cannot marry the Brahmanical society. His eyes were removed during that time. But Basavanna advocated for the intercaste marriage, where Lavanya was a Brahmin by birth and a daughter of Madhuvarsa in a Bijjala court. He accepted Lingayat movement and Lingayat religion. And the Shilavanta, who was the son of a cobbler, Haralaya, they were preparing a chappals and shoe, foods. They had a love and they got married. He says, what is wrong in that? Yammavaru Basavanda Shubhalagna. When our people comes across, say that it is a Shubhalagna. Tara Bala, Chandra Bala, don't see all those Muhurta, superstitions, avoid it. Whenever the two hands come together, say that it is a Shubhalagna. You make them a marriage. And this, as Sukhadeo sir, Thorat sir said, he had to pay the tax for that. Heavy penalty for that. Basavanna had to leave out his crown, leave the Basava Kalyana for the reason of intercaste movement. And this is the best example that Lord Basavanna has made efforts of annihilation caste system, eradication of caste system, or anti-caste system, or casteless society. I can say casteless society. He propagated that one should have good conduct. That is the religion. And he practiced what he preached. He was not a hypocrite. The hypocrisy of Brahmins were questioned. Vedas were totally condemned by, he says. I can bind the leather sheath to the Vedas, he says. I will lock the Agama. I will cut the nose of Tarka. I will cut the nose of Agama, he says. So such a brave decision he takes, and it is only for the upliftment of the downtrodden people. Low caste boy got married to the Brahmin society, till it is been a record. Coming to the contribution, Basavanna is been considered as an architect of the parliament system. Today, globally, we consider Magna Carta is the first democratic system who practiced in the 13th century. Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, during his study, in one of his 13th and 14th chapter, he expresses about Basavarna, saying that Basavarna is an architect of the parliament system. Because he built an Anubhav Mantapa, he established an Anubhav Mantapa. Around 770 parliamentarians were there, including more than 100 lady parliamentarians. Ladies are not given any reservations till today. But he gave Hendu Hendala. You cannot call lady as a lady. Lady is not a devil. Lady is Kapila Siddha Mallikarjuna. She is a god by herself. So this was the architect or parliament system. Because of this, his movement, Indian parliament system given a chance to install the statue of Basavarna in front of the British parliament, saying that Basavarna and his contemporaries are the architect of the parliament system. It has been recorded and mentioned by Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Sahib also. All the discussions and debates were unbiased and purely on a democratic system. There are one instance when Basavarna says Sharana Sati Lingapati. When Sharana is a Sati, when there is a wife, and the Linga, what the Basavarna gave is a Pati, is a husband. around 769 people approved this, but one, the Ambigara Chodaya, he opposed. He says, no, how can it be? Anga Linga, the body and the Linga is the one. You cannot say. Why you find the discrimination between when you says God is within ourselves? How come the God become my husband? It is not possible. So this sort of a parliament system, Basavarna started. Coming to the most important is woman empowerment. The Sharana movement was a great blessing to the womanhood. The women were bounded by the unsympathetic orthodox traditions. They were not allowed to go out of the house. And ladies was considered as a devil. It is an instrument only for the baby's delivery. But Basavanna says, no, lady is not a lady. Lady is not a devil. She is not an instrument for the delivery of a baby. She is Kapila Siddha Mallikarjuna. She is Lord Kodala Sangama. She has a divine power. And as a result of it, we find 35 Vachanakartiyas, women writers and poets during Basavanna. I'll tell you very honestly, the prostitute Sule Sankave was also allowed and permitted to be a part of parliament system in Anubhava Mandapa. Sule Sankave, prostitute was allowed. Can you imagine to what extent Basavarna empowered the womanhood? So all these instances, and there are many lessons. We can see the examples that wife taught, like Aidakki Lakkama gave a lesson to her husband. In the same way, Nilambike and Gangambike gives a lesson. In the sense they taught Basavarna, though he was a scholar of that time. And there was a total, the gender discrimination was removed off and totally abolished and brought the equality in every step. Coming to the eradications of blind beliefs, superstitions, and temple craft culture, Basavarna strongly protested against the blind beliefs, opposed the superstitions, and didn't go to the temple. And not only that, he said, going to the temple is like a prostitution. You have your consciousness as your God, and why you are sleeping, why you are going to the God, which is an idol. It is a stone. Why you want to be a part of the exploitation of a priest class? So thus, he opposed the priest class and eradicated the blind belief and superstitions. And he says, what is the religion? He says, compassion and mercy is the root of religion. Daya is the basic principle of all the religions. Killing animals, sacrificing goats, cow in the name of God was opposed by Basavarna. One must be very polite in his behavior. One must say truths in all the situations. One must not steal. He must not lie. He must not boast himself. One must not glorify himself. This is what the principles. He said, respect all the womanhood. Treat the other woman as your mother. Paravadona Mahadevi Ambe. If I see any other girl other than my wife, I'll call her as my mother. So this is how he said. He opposed the idol worship. Basavarna Allama said that the perfect Sharana can only become a god and not the god. God cannot become a god because he has nothing to do. He has no work. Coming to the next most important is the influence of Basaveshwara and Mahatma Gandhiji and Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Mahatma Gandhiji was the president of National Indian Congress. In 1924, he was supposed to be the president. He presided over the function in Belgaum. And Hardekar Manjappa, who was a close associate of Mahatma Gandhi, wanted to introduce Basavanna to Mahatma Gandhi. So he went to Marathi laureate, great laureate that time, Lakshmanrao Bhide. Lakshmanrao Bhide, a Marathi laureate, wrote a book, Satyagrahi Basaveshwar. It was published in Marathi, Gujarati. That time it is a Sayukta Maharashtra and Gujarat. And the book was given to Basaveshwara, Mahatma Gandhi, book on Basaveshwara. Basaveshwara's life sketch, his contribution was read by Gandhi. He was so much influence, the tears came out. And one of his sessions in Belgaum, he says, you people are lucky enough. People of Karnataka are lucky enough to have such a big prophet who fought for the genuine democracy, who fought for the gender equality, who fought for the eradication of caste system. If you people do 10% of his what contribution Basavarna has done, not only India, whole world can become the equal in every aspect. These are the words which have been documented by Mahatma Gandhi. And same thing, when Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, if I say Bhimrao Ambedkar came to India in 1950, his first case was filed in Dharwad. The TCH, one boy was not given admission to the Dharwad teacher training college. That time education minister was Sir Siddhappa Kamble in Bombay province. I'll take just 10 minutes. I think time is there, if I'm not wrong. Siddhappa Kamble was a minister of Bombay province, non-Brahmin movement. He came from the non-Brahmin movement. Justice Party, Mudaliyar, all people had gathered in 1921. And Basaveshwara and his life was introduced to Ambedkar very late. There are two instances which Ambedkar met across the life sketch of Basavanna. In 1952, the Hindu Code Bill, which we call as the Savitri Bill, the movement reservation for the ladies, was proposed by Baba Sahib Ambedkar in the parliament. He aggressively said, are there any prophet in India who fought for the women empowerment, reservations of women empowerment? So that time, Nijalingappa was the parliamentarian from Karnataka. He gave some translated books of Basavarna in English to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. After a week in corridor, he said, you people, Lingaites, pocketed Basavarna. If you would have left Basavarna outside, he would have spread all over the world. Later in 1956, he was admitted in Dharwad, Ambedkar, Baba Sahib Ambedkar. He was calling Sir Siddhappa, Sir Sahib, because he was a law minister. And in 1915, when he applied for the assistant professor post, Ambedkar Sahib, Baba Sahib, he refused. Siddhappa Kamble refused. And Ambedkar Sahib had a little pain in his heart. Why I had got such a doctorate and other things, I was refused. And second, after 6 months or 1 year later, there was a vacancy for professor post. And Baba Sahib again applied and he was selected. And Baba Sahib asks Siddhappa Kamble, Sahib, how can you have rejected me in the assistant professor and how come you selected me for professor? That time he says, Sahib, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, Dekho, if you would have been selected as an assistant professor, you would have never become a professor because this Brahminical society would have not made you professor. So I avoided. I did not give you an appointment as an assistant professor. I gave you as a professor. That was the reason why Ambedkar Sahib was calling Sir Siddhappa Kamble as Sir Sahib, because he was holding 7 portfolio. He was 25 years ministers in the Bombay province at the time. So when he was admitted in Dharwad, Sir Siddhappa Kamble takes some few books of Basavarna and gives to Baba Sahib for reading. After 4 or 5 days, again he visits to Baba Sahib. Their eyes were wet. He says, Sahib, tumi khub usir kele. Adi dile asti, mi lingay dharma svikar kele asta. It has been recorded in Sir Sahib. It has been recorded in Sir Siddhappa Kamble's. It is whatever I'm telling, Nijalingappa's books have been recorded. So eradications of caste system. Later in 1956 to 50, he had mentioned 4 bill acts, that Hindu Succession Act, Hindu Family Act, Hindu Marriage Act, Adoption Act. He mentioned Hindu law is applicable to Muslims, Christians, and also Lingaites. He came to know that Lingayat is a non-Vedic and it is a non-Hindu. So this is how it was influenced and to Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Basavarna established a classless society, fought against the gender discrimination. All the code bills today, what we call vachanas are nothing but the constitutional. If you take Indian penal codes, all these code acts have been there in the vachanas, which Basavarna and his contemporaries proposed. Kayaka was a mandatory. Daso was a essential. Kayaka, the code of conduct must be very good. It should be honest. A man should be committed to his life. And for the society, he should work. What society he called as a Jangama. One must have a good conduct, good behavior, good language. The language should be as soft as the God applauds our language. At the end, I would like to say, Sir Arthur Miles, the scholar of 1933, he says, whatever the legend may say about Basavarna, it is pretty clear that he is the first free thinker of India. He can be called as King Martin Luther. Basavarna, around 14 vachanas, around 14,050 vachanas. But after Kalyana Kranti, the revolution took place. The Brahminical culture people started burning the vachanas. put the fire, lit the fire on the Anubhav Mantapa, so that this sort of treasure of wisdom, this sort of wealth of equality should not get to anybody. He strongly opposed the Vedic culture. He says the Veda is a matter of study. Shastra is a gossip of the fair. Purana is a session of the images. And the logic is the fight of goats. And Bhakti is a show of the prophet, the Goeshwara. All his contemporaries did not accept Vedic culture. They opposed. The main motto of Lord Basavanna was to establish the free and equal, classless society, no creed, no color, removed all the barriers and united the people. The king of Kashmir comes and works with the cobbler. It's not a small thing. So with these few words, I once again thank Dr. Sukhadeo sir and Professor Krishnaraj. Of course, he bridged me, and my friend Siddhappa. Thanking you all, sir, for giving me an opportunity. I would say Jai Bhim, Jai Buddha, Jai Basava, Jai Bapu. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your very wonderful, insightful, and knowledgeable lectures. You can see in the comment section, our participants are really enlightened by your words. And thank you so much for unfolding many facts regarding Basavanna and his movements, to the democracy, to the annihilation of caste, for the women empowerment, and fight against discrimination, and so on and so forth. Thank you so much, sir, for your wonderful speech. And now may I request Roshan to please introduce our another guest speaker, Professor Dr. Krishnaraj. Roshan.
Yes, thank you, Pawan. Jai Bhim to everyone, and welcome warm evening. I, Roshan Shirkare, student from Center for Social Justice and Governance from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Dr. Krishna Raj is a professor at Center for Economic Studies and Policy, Institute for Social and Economic Changes, Bangalore in India. He has obtained a PhD in economics from University of Mysore. Before joining the ICSSR Bangalore, he was a permanent faculty at Kavempu University, Shivamogga. Most of his work in the field of environmental economics, particularly on the forest, property rights, and deforestation in Western Ghats. Climate change and efficiency of water supply and demand management in New York and Bangalore cities.